The next storyteller is from the Kenmare district, the parishes of Bonan, Kenmare, Kilgarvan, Sneem and Tusist. A man who is a Shanachie, chairman of the Sneem Storytelling Festival. And here BattBurns tells The Man Who Married the Mermaid. BattBurns.
Tell me this and tell me no more. Is there anyone sitting around here tonight that could tell me how the shays from west of Dingle came to have the webbed fingers and the webbed toes? God, it looks like I'm not going to get any answer. I mightn't have the answer to that question either, except that I met a certain Teddy Shea at his father's wake near the town of Dingle one night, more years ago now than I care to remember. Indeed, the same Shays wouldn't tell how much, a fierce, tight-lipped crowd. But this night, Teddy took a drink or two over the quota, and wasn't I lucky to be perched right beside him when his tongue was loosened. Well out into the night, for 'twas a darn good wake, he leaned over on the stool and says he to me, "Did you ever hear how the fellow in the bed came to have the webbed fingers and the webbed toes?" I then I heard many queer yarns in my lifetime, says I, but that was one story I never heard. And with that he told me the full tale, and that's the story that I'm going to tell you people tonight. Now it seems that Teddy Shea's grandfather, old Shawneen Shea, had a great eye for the women when he was a young man. It wasn't for nothing he was nicknamed Shawneen the Man, or Johneen of the women. There wouldn't be a crossroads dance, a house dance, a fair or a pattern that Shawneen wouldn't be there. And he dressed up to kill with a big wide American tie in him that'd cover half the table for her, and enough hair oil in his head that would pollute the Atlantic or the Pacific Ocean. But in spite of all his dolling up, he was making very poor headway with the fair sex. And that girl would dance a jig or a reel with him all right at a crossroads, but that would be the limit of her activity with him. No, he was not the most handsome man in the world. The man above, glory be to his blessed name, must have created him on the day of rest. For God help us, he wasn't much with the 5 feet, and they say it is any human being's privilege to look ugly, but Shawneen abused the privilege. He had an aunt working over in the Bronx in New York. She sent him over a pair of those high American shoes with the big thick heels in them to give him a bit of a lift in the world. But God help us, it took him all his time to stay on top of the 2 shoes, not to mind go dancing jigs and reels in them at crossroads. Time wore on and the story was still the same. And his prospects of getting married were getting slimmer and slimmer. And the prospect of he dying wondering was staring him in the face. One Sunday morning in the springtime of the year, Shawneen went down to secure his boat. He was a fisherman, you see, and the night before was stormy. And when he had well secured, he was heading up from the shore to go into Sunday morning mass, and he gave one look back again at the boat, and then he saw on top of the grey rock a beautiful mermaid, and she combing her golden locks with a herringbone. God, this lassie took the sight clean out of his eyes. He stood there like a man enchanted, rooted to the ground. After a while he came to his senses, and what did he see thrown on the rock, on the sand beside the grey rock, but her cohelindra, or capindrichte, enchanted cap. And he had heard from an old Shanachie like myself that if you could capture the capindrichte, the mermaid would be powerless to go down to the land under the sea. He put 2 and 2 together in his own mind and says to himself, if I can't get a woman on land, I'll only have to head for the sea. And he made a dash for the capindrichte, and he was only just in time, because the minute he got his hands on it, didn't she turn around on the grey rock. And when she saw her enchanted cap gone, she let out this mournful scream out of her. Oh, God would wake the dead. You'd have pity to hear if you thought of it. Well, I don't know whether Shawneen had pity or not, but he kept a firm grip of the capindrichte until he'd see what way would things turn out. "Ah, don't cry, my decent girl," says he, taking her by the hand. And 'twas in no particular an ugly hand, except there was a web of skin between the fingers, such as you see in a duck's foot, only 'twas as thin and as white as the joining between the yolk and the shell of an egg. "What's your name?" says Shawneen to the mermaid, and he got no reply. And he was sure and certain that either she was a dummy or else she didn't understand him. So do you know what he did? He gave the hand a little bit of a squeeze. And of course that is the universal language. And there isn't a woman in the world, be she fish or lady, that don't understand it. 'Twasn't long until she stopped her whinging and whining. And when Shawneen told her that he'd about 10 acres of land, 5 cows, hens, ducks, a drake and a jinnet. She became a different girl altogether. She stepped down off the grey rock, drew herself up to her full height. She was as tall and as beautiful as the pirate queen Grace O'Malley. Seanín straightened himself up as best he could. He didn't have far up to go. And still holding on to her hand, says he to her, "Here's my word to you, fresh and fasting, my lady of the sea, but I'll make you Mrs. Seanín Shea before the whole world if you're willing." "Don't say the word twice," says she. "I'm ready and willing, but give me a chance to fix up my hair." I suppose she guessed she'd be going among people and that people would be looking at her. Now, like a lot more women, she was a hell of a long time tuning up the hair. And when she was done, she bent down low over the water and whispered something to the waves. Seanín looked at her. He says, "Is it talking to the salt water you are?" "There's nothing else," says she. "I'm sending word down to my father in the land under the sea to tell him that, not to be in the least bit worried about me, that I've made a good match." "Your father? Who's your father?" "Well, I'll have you know that my father is the king of the waves in the land under the sea." "Well, glory be to God," he says, "I'm nothing but a made man this blessed day, and a king your father. He must be a man of money." "'Tis as plentiful by him," says she, "as the falling leaves of autumn. And all I ever have to do is send word down, and that money will come up fine and flourishing." Where she got the word flourishing, I don't know, but that's what she said. At that stage, Seanín invited her up to the house for the requite. And the two of them were rising up into the high ground, up from the sea, when all of a sudden he said, "Bend down quick, hide behind the rock." What was it but his neighbours were coming in to Sunday morning mass, and 'twouldn't do for him to see Seanín and he parading a blonde mermaid up and down the seashore, when she was inside the chapel playing his rosary beads, he ought to be. He stayed there until mass was over and the congregation scattered. And then he brought the mermaid into the sacristy, where old Father Tom was disrobing after mass, stood out in front of the priest boy and says, "Father, we've come to get married." Old Father Tom looked, "In the name of God, Seanín Shea," he says, "what's come over you, or what are you up to? Is it marry a scaly creature like this you would? How do we know where she came from? And anyway, she's far too tall for you." "But Father, she's the daughter of a king. And as regards her height, I suppose she won't be always standing." "I don't care if she's the daughter of 40 kings. I can't marry you to her, for she's a fish. Where am I going to get a letter of freedom for her?" "A great pity, Father, a great pity entirely. For whatever priest will tie the knot in the two of us, we'll make it worth his while. Her father has the monies as plentiful as the sands of the seashore." Old Father Tom hummed and hawed for a while. To cut a long story short, that priest agreed to marry the two of them, and they settled down to married life, the self-same as any couple that's listening to me here tonight. And God knows they weren't idle. In a couple of years, there were 4 or 5 kids running around the kitchen floor, and every one of the kids had the webbed fingers and the webbed toes. One Monday morning, Seanín got up at dawn, hunted out 2 of his cows. He was going to sell them at the fair of Dingle. Took off down the boreen. He wasn't gone down to the end of the boreen when she got up. Woke the children, gave them a quick breakfast. And then she started scrubbing and cleaning and dusting on the ground floor. And when that was done, she went up into the loft and started the same caper up there. And over by the wall, there was an old dust-laden net. And she went over and she pulled it out to clean behind it. And there in the cubbyhole, for the first time in 5 years, she saw her copy in Drichte, because there he hid it. And the minute she saw it, this overpowering longing came over her to go back to the sea to see her father and mother, brothers and sisters. And then she thought of Seanín and the children. And she grabbed the copy in Drichte and she was pulled and tugged. But said she to herself, "I'll be back again before he rightly knows I'm gone." And down the stairs she went, and she told the old girl to take care of the young ones while she was out. And as she went to go out the door, she doubled back to the cradle where the baby was asleep, and a tear trembled for a while in her eye and dropped onto the baby's cheek. She wiped it away. And out the door she went, and she headed for the seashore. And there on this beautiful sunny morning, the sea was heaving and glittering in the morning sun. And as she got close, a faint fairy music came up through the waves, luring her back to her homeland. She put the copy and drift on her head and dived down. Seaneen sold the 2 cows at the fair of Dingle. He had a few jorums of whisky. He came home hungry, but there was no dinner before him, or there was no wife before him. And the kid said she went out in the morning and didn't come back. That was mysterious. It was an old woman across the way who had solved the problem. Seaneen, he says, I saw her heading for the seashore with a thing like a cocked hat in her hand. And it was then the terrible truth flashed across his mind. He doubled back to the house, up to the loft, and he saw the empty cubbyhole. She'd found it. She found his hide. Like a man distracted, he went down and he called the eldest young fellow with him, and they headed for the Grey Rock. But there was no trace of her on the Grey Rock. Nor was there ever a trace of her again. But she didn't forget Seaneen and the children. For every Sunday morning at dawn, a little seaweed purse with a shining gold sovereign was left on top of the Grey Rock. And the young fellow that collected that sovereign every Sunday morning was now the old man that was stretched in death at that wake that I was at the town of Dingle. Sinema scale, agus mata brega un biak, marni misha, a chum na cape.